Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today I'm with a painter out of Portland, Oregon, so just across the pond from Seattle. And I learned about them recently through a guest that remained unnamed for now because the interview is not out yet, and it's a very exciting interview, and I'm really excited I got them. They're all the way from New Mexico. Simran knows who they are. And he recently did one of their cover arts. So not only, I just gave away your name also. Fuck. I usually give a cool intro and then say their name. Basically my guest today is Simran Gleason. And not only is he an oil painter, he also does cover arts, and he did the cover art for the unnamed guest that is coming out soon.
So we don't get to mention their name. That'll be fun.
Welcome to the podcast.
They're actually from Old Mexico.
Oh yeah. True. So
yeah.
Have you always lived in Oregon?
No. I grew up in the Midwest in Michigan.
Oh.
Moved to California for school, got Californicated, and stayed for 28 years.
Wow.
And then moved to Oregon 15 years ago.
Wow. So what'd you go to school for? I'm guessing art or?
Computers.
Oh.
I have a master's degree in software engineering. In fact, I didn't actually learn to draw until a week after I finished my master's degree.
Wow.
I was total left brain nerd, and I had heard that you could learn to draw. There's this book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. She's like, yes, anyone can learn to draw. I'm like, ooh, not me. And she was right. I was wrong. Took a long time. And, I had to wait. I had kind of got the bug to do it while working on my degree, but had to wait to actually study it until I had finished.
Wow. That's a very interesting thing. Like I'm a younger guy, so I feel like I'm still figuring out, even though I've done a lot of episodes and I talk to a lot of people, I'm still my journey of like learning how people work. There's just so many different types of people out there, and I never want to be biased towards anything, but I feel like I go through phases where I feel like, especially because I'm so involved with music and art, that I think there's either logical people or there's creative people, and it's interesting to see that you're saying you had this logical brain, but you also were able to tap into something creative.
Yeah, and I was a professional software engineer for 30 years, and only just last year, maybe 2 years ago, time is different in the from the before time. It was
BC.
It was actually during the first year of the pandemic sequester that I switched to full-time artist.
Wow.
And part of it was getting album cover gigs. My first one was with Dijon. It was his
How
do you feel about getting married EP. And that was a whole lot of fun. It was, in fact, the Wednesday before the shutdown. I was driving back from Seattle. I was up there for a martial arts seminar. And on the way back, driving in through the rain, I was negotiating with Dijon's art director on how to do this.
Wow.
Which was kind of fun. It was my first album cover gig. I had no idea how to negotiate or price this, and I was driving in the rain from Seattle, and it worked out.
Dang. So people who don't know, Dijon is I'd still say he's a little bit up and coming artist. I don't even know where he's from. I actually just heard of him recently. Literally, that's so funny. I heard about him probably 2 weeks before I learned about you.
Neat.
Do you know where he's out of?
He's from LA.
Okay, yeah.
Here is the album cover.
Oh,
I did, and this was a whole bunch of fun doing this. The art director called me up and said, "Okay, here's the concept. Here's the name of the album, and we've come up with 10 concepts, and we want you to illustrate those and then we'll choose the best one.
Mhm.
And what's your pricing? And I'm like, okay, this is how much I charge for commissions and da 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 da. And came back with that, and it's like, no, let's do 3.
Mm.
And so we ended up with 3 concepts. It was this one. It was kind of like the ring going on the alien finger.
Yeah.
There was the bird wedding.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. And this took three or so iterations. You know, the groom's peeps are penguins, and that's my dog in the middle.
That's so awesome.
So that was a silhouette of Delta Dog. And then, from there I went on and I did a few more. I worked with Spencer Barnett from LA, and did a couple of single covers for him that were based on Dali paintings.
Mm.
It was like we did the clock, and then for his 48 hours in Paris. Hey, get back.
If you're listening, definitely check out the YouTube video, because this is really cool artwork. Yeah.
There's so this was kind of fun. It was kind of like the song was 48 Hours in Paris. It was from a trip that Spencer had taken, and related the anecdotes.
Wow.
And there was a particular Dali painting they wanted to kind of echo.
And you're talking about Salvador Dali, correct?
Yeah. So and that was the one with the tree, which was also the face, which echoes in there with 3 of them. And I decided to make it a long view, and I told them the story of my one afternoon in Paris after a painting trip with my mom in Provence. I took the train back to Paris. I had one night there at the airport hotel before leaving in the morning, and I went to the Catacombs, which are it was the day before Halloween.
Yeah.
And I saw the skulls there, and I brought my easel down and seeing if I could do a painting of it. There's all these signs that say, no backpacks, no tripods, don't touch anything. And I'm like, okay, do I ask for permission or forgiveness? And around one of the corners, there was a guy sitting in a folding chair, kind of like,
yeah,
I have to watch these things. So bored. And I'm like, in broken French English, I asked, can I do a painting of this? And he was like, whatever.
Wow.
Probably some high school or college kid who was just like, that's his job, watching the catacombs, making sure nobody steals any skulls. And so I did a little painting down there, which was really kind of fun.
Dang. I just imagine applying to that job on Indeed, or I don't even know how you find that job. Watch the Catacombs.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So
yeah, it was kind of interesting. They were even though it was the day before Halloween and the veils were thin, it didn't feel spooky at all.
Really?
They all those skeletons and skulls had been moved from the cemeteries of Paris into the catacombs 400 or 500 years ago,
right,
to make room for Paris, and they were all gone. It just didn't feel like any of them were just hanging around.
Right.
They're like, yeah, we got better things to do than entertain tourists by being spooky.
Yeah. I think the scariest thing in a catacomb, honestly, would probably be just the spiders or bugs that are down there.
Yeah, wasn't buggy at all. It was actually pretty well maintained.
Wow.
But there's all kinds of caves and tunnels and things under there that you don't have access to.
Really?
Unless you're some kind of Parisian skater punk who knows the inner secrets. So yeah, I only went to the tourist areas.
Dang, that's cool. I haven't been to Paris. That sounds like a really cool place to go.
That was a whole lot of fun. So I was telling him the story and trying to say, how do we get the skulls in there? And we're trying to hey, there's a cave, And so I ended up doing this kind of almost watercolorish, look at that up close, kind of
Yeah.
almost a watercolorish, but done with oil paint and solvent.
Wow.
And we put those as the clouds in the sky, and that made the picture.
So out of any like material, why do you use oil painting?
I was doing acrylic for years and years and years, and switched to oil painting. What got me to switch was I was up at a wedding on Mount Hood, and got up really early in the morning to go paint the mountain. And it was cold, and I didn't have quite enough sweatshirts on, and I was kind of up there shivering. But my paint stayed wet long enough for me to really mix the morning colors, and that's those subtle magentas and purples. I'm like, oh, this is what oil painters get. I better try switching. So I got some oil paints and switched and tried to do oil painting where I kind of get that kind of color mixing. And my painting sucked for 6 months. But I eventually got it. And now it works really well. It turns out that given certain techniques, you can paint really fast with oil paint, because you could just put something down and cover it, and with you can put one color over the top of another if you do your thin to thick progression properly.
Right.
And I take advantage of that for what I consider my main project, which is the slow camera paparazzi.
Yeah, tell people about that.
So it was one time at Burning Man. I was around. All stories start at Burning Man.
Yes.
I was out painting pictures of things like construction projects and things in it, and I realized, oh, I'm just out here taking pictures of things like everybody else. It's just that my camera's slower, so I spend more time with it and I engage with it more, and I like all this pompous stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just my camera, but a little slower. Once that happened, all the other projects came in from the pun potential. So the first project was the slow camera photo booth. I'd put a couch out there and set my easel down. People would sit on the couch, mug for the camera with their friends. They'd photobomb each other, and I'd do a little painting of them.
Wow.
In 10 minutes.
Wow.
And I don't paint their faces. I just get the shape of them, and that turns into that kind of thing. And that's been a project that I've been doing at some of the burner events for a while. Let me grab an example. Here's one I did out in the high deserts of Washington, and it's on a transparent piece, and it's just that much of a portrait done in that much time.
Is that like plexiglass or something, or what is that?
That is exactly plexiglass.
Wow, called it.
Yeah. So then I was painting some bands, and I painted a friend's band. And I used to do that long ago, back when I lived in California. I used to paint, I call them bandscape paintings, which is a cute name, but not that good. And then when I started up again up here in Oregon, I had the idea of calling it the slow camera paparazzi. So I go and I take pictures of bands as they're playing, or performers, or I was doing a drag show a couple nights ago, which was really neat. Burlesque is the hardest because the costumes change.
Yeah.
You have to choose an iconic pose and an iconic, it's like you have to get something that is like, that's the thing. And usually you have to do something in the beginning because the costumes change and it takes a little time to do it. But it's, I've kind of gotten the feel of being able to do the sort of the gesture of it, and catch an iconic gesture. One of the one that became my business card, it was Lisa from the band Anther, a all-woman thrash band from Portland. And she had her bass. She was just wailing away on it. She did a Pete Townsend for the last chord, held it up like this, and did a Freddie Mercury. Held it for that long, and that was enough to get the outline of the gesture. Just where's the body, where's the head, and that.
So
I spent the next.
Are you like sketching this at first, or do you go straight to paint?
I go straight to paint.
Wow.
And then I spent the next 2 or 3 songs figuring out where would the light be when her arm was up here, and she was playing down here. And that one was kind of an iconic picture, and it turned into my biz card. Here's the picture in question.
Oh yeah.
So he's just doing the Freddie Mercury there.
That's
and
awesome.
There's very little detail, but it's enough to get the feel of it.
Yeah.
And I just go straight into paint. And this was done on a CD cover, which is a fast surface, so I go really quickly.
Yeah.
There's another example right there. And this was when I was in Monterrey in Mexico for the Tecate Pal Norte festival, and that's the Foo Fighters.
Ooh.
And it was kind of in a mosh pit at the time, and I could only see 4 of them. But this was done during the set.
Wow.
This was about a half hour, and then it got too much, and we moved to the back of the thing. And it's on an album cover.
Whoa.
This is Sophia Loren and the Fall of the Roman Empire.
Have you got like backstage passes yet to things to be like, oh, he's about to come paint us?
So this one I did. The unnamed interviewee in question was also playing this festival.
Oh.
And their manager works for the company that put on the festival.
Oh wow.
So they got me passes to that, and I went to a whole bunch of different things, and I could go backstage and into the dressing rooms for most of the band. I did like 17 different paintings of bands, and I managed to give away all but 2 of them. 2 of them came back with me.
Wow.
Behind that is this is Eli Guerra.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was a whole bunch of things. There was traditional Mexican bands. There was the food. There was DJs, all kind of stuff. I didn't paint any DJs.
Mm-hmm. So would you say your musical tastes align more with bands? Since when I checked out your website, there's a whole section focused on, and you said Bandscape, focused on painting bands. And I know Dijon's kind of I feel like I don't even know what genre to categorize him in, honestly. But I'd like to see where your music tastes lie.
Oh, all over. My favorite genre is kind of punk doom country.
Whoa, that sounds crazy.
like the Bridge City Sinners or Sarsaparilla. The jug band punk bands. I just love painting them because they'll have washboards and accordions and basses, stand-up basses or even a tub bass. Those are kind of my favorite, but I also like to listen to a whole lot. I do open mics a lot, and that's where I kind of train to get stuff faster. So there's a lot of singer-songwriters doing guitar work or poets. Mm-hmm. One thing that's cool in Portland, there's a classical music open mic.
Wow.
And so people bring their instruments and they'll bring scores, and maybe they'll have rehearsed with some people, or maybe they'll have rehearsed it and we'll say, can anyone accompany me on these other things? Mm-hmm. And so you'll get cello, clarinet, oboe trios. Painting oboes is really fun.
Yeah.
One time the one of the suburbs, Milwaukee, next to us, mm-hmm. had a porch music fest. This was during the sequester, and they had a bunch of musicians play on their own porches. Mm. And one of the fun ones was a park with a huge water tower, and there was a brass quintet with flugelhorns and sousaphones and French horns and all of this, and you could hear it echoing off the underside of the water tower.
Wow.
It was really neat.
Wow.
It was fun. And and then the bands are always really excited to get these. Mm-hmm. I always give the paintings to the performers. Mm-hmm. and it's all in the gift economy. So I don't charge anything for this. Sometimes people will tip me and things like that, or give me, backstage passes to their shows. But I just, I've kind of got a reputation in Portland where I just show up, paint the band, and give it to them. They're like, "What?"
Wow. But as an artist, though, not even from a monetization standpoint, how do you know what you're worth, though? How do you know what your art's worth?
Yeah. I've gone, or how there's worth and there's price,
Mm-hmm.
and they're different things.
Yeah.
In the gift economy, which this particular project is in the gift economy, there is a huge worth in the connection I make with different artists and the connections people make with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just having all that out there. When I do commissions or when I sell paintings, I price them by size.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't judge whether or not they're good enough and change the price based on how much I like it. If I don't like it, I won't put it out there.
Right.
If I do like it, then it's up to someone. And it's, I'm going on a philosophy from Robert Jen, one of the Canadian Gang of Seven. And he's like, when you're young, start out with really low prices, price them by size, not by what you think about them. Kind of like per square inch sort of ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then raise your prices 10% every year. And by the time you get to be an old fart, they'll be, high. I started off with that, but I haven't actually raised my prices since 2016.
Right.
I just tend to concentrate on the bigger paintings. And I haven't been in galleries, so it's very different when you're in a gallery, because you have to, they have to pretty much double the price to make money, and you can't undersell them.
Right.
So you're kind of, once you start doing that, you get locked in, and I'm kind of more pricing in the can people afford it? Can my friends afford it? And so when I price my album cover work, I've spent a long time trying to figure out how to do that. So
right.
I ended up splitting into two parts. There's the price for making the painting itself, the commission, and that is the same price as all my other work, done by size. If someone is on a low budget, I do a smaller piece. If someone's on a higher budget, I do a bigger piece. But then the usage charges, which allows them to publish it.
Right.
That's a different category, and that depends on whether they're an indie artist, a major label, etc. So my goal is to make it so that young upcoming indie artists can get an album cover done for within their budget. And when people have established and made it, we take care of each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, before we make it, we take care of each other. After we make it, we take care of each other.
Hell yeah. I see that.
That's my philosophy.
That's awesome. One of my favorite artists and previous guests, Azizi Gibson. Oh shoot, he actually might. His cover artist, I think he might live in LA, but I thought he might live in Portland. I don't know if you've heard of. I think it's John Pollock. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
I have not.
He actually might live in Oregon as well, or LA. It's either one of those places. Completely different. But anyways, Azizi and him have been working for like years, and like each time he drops a single or an album, it's usually done by the same artist. And so I like your way of thinking of continuing to grow with these artists.
Yeah, and this is something I'm working with my Mexican band. Is we started off just doing one single cover, and I charged them $150 for it, and painted the painting for them, and I listened to the thing, did a bunch of sketches and stuff, and I'll walk you through my process a little bit later to show you how I ended up doing this kind of thing. And then they're like, okay, for our next set of albums, we kind of want to make everything be painted. So I worked up some package deals. It's like, okay, we'll do these album this many single covers, this many album covers, this kind of thing, and put it all together as a package price, which is kind of neat.
And have you tapping into the right side of the brain? Have you found a way to, like, this is a somewhat of an example. Like for when I'm doing promo for like an interview, even most people, I literally have to listen to my interview completely over, listen to the music again, and then I make the promo based on how I feel after listening to the interview and listening to their music. Like it seems like a straightforward thing to make a promo video, but I really take time to like get inspiration for like how I'm going to go forward with making the podcast cover art and the promo video. So for you, I was wondering, when you're creating a cover art for a band or an artist, is it them telling you what they want you to create, or are you getting inspiration from talking to the artist and digesting their music, or how does that work for you?
Both of those, actually. So I usually work with the band, and we start off with kind of a concept stage. And they usually, by that point, have early demos of the music. So I always listen to it, do some sketching. Maybe they've got ideas or things like that. Maybe they've got some reference photos that they want, or maybe they have a vague idea of something or a description of the song. So sometimes it's been, concepts that came with that, and I worked to illustrate them. The Dijon was, here's 10 different concepts. Let's see if we can do 3 of them.
Right.
And sketching them out with an Australian band. Now my brain doesn't even remember them. It was three kids were like high school, college age, 3 brothers.
Wow. Who
made a band. So they have a song about connecting with people when you can't actually see them. And so I started off and I did a bunch of sketches. I'm like, all right, let's go with the Zoom grid and let's have dogs looking at the Zoom grid. And so I did a couple sketches of that. And I'm like, no, let's try robots. And there were some robots looking at a Zoom grid at each other and kind of thing like that. And I gave them a bunch of sketches, based on talking to them. And they came back with a fully fleshed out concept. They said, we want a young kid, maybe 8 or so, on a beach, running for their life away from 2 UFOs that are chasing them. And the cliff should be the cliffs of Dover.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a concept I can work with. So I sketched it out. We did some color studies. I did the painting for them. I sent it off to them, and their label said, "Oh, this is too professional. You're kind of a little more indie." And so you need to. So they didn't end up going with it.
Wow.
Yeah. So here's the painting I did. They're alt fiction from the Gold Coast.
That's awesome. What the heck?
And yeah, they thought it was a little too polished for a young indie band kind of trying to be underground alt. That was what their label is positioning them as. And so they ended up making it as a t-shirt.
Wow.
Which is really fun.
Wow, that's so cool. So how old are you when you said you went to the catacombs with your mom? Like, I'd like to understand, like, were you ever intrigued by art when growing up, or did it really just happen once you graduated from college?
As I look back, I used to do a whole bunch of little crafty stuff. I would do macrame and hooked rugs, and I never really got drawing stuff. The story my mom tells of my kindergarten or first grade teacher who was kind of frustrated with me not ever drawing anything that looked like anything. And one day she called up my mom and said, "Oh, he actually did a drawing that we can recognize. It was the house with the tree and the sun, and he's finally got a drawing that's the drawing." And apparently I had done it out of frustration because he didn't like the stuff I was doing, the abstract stuff. So I gave in, did that, and never drew again. Until later on in college it came out. But I always used to do crafty stuff. So it was kind of in there. I guess it was just kind of deep dive from having been really, really gone into the left brain stuff. And being a nerd for most of my life. Still am.
So
once upon a time I was a nerd, and
I'm still a nerd. So was there do you think there was a personality change once you started getting into drawing? I'm trying to figure, were you, when you were working in, what was your profession again? Sorry, it's computer.
I was working as a software developer for a long time.
So were you a software developer wearing suits and stuff, and then one day you switched into drawing and going to Burning Man, or how was the evolution?
I was in Silicon Valley, and let's see, when I started my software career, I was wearing a turban.
Oh.
The name Simran comes from when I converted to Sikhism back in my errant youth, which was early in college, and wore a turban for 20 years.
Wait, what's Sikhism?
So Sikhism is it's a religion from the Punjab, the upper left side of India, and it came out of some conflicts between the Hindus and the Muslims about 500 years ago. And one guy said, "Y'all are getting it wrong. Shouldn't be fighting about this stuff. It's all the same." And then went and found his own stuff.
And what attracted you to that?
I was kind of the yoga technology. I was taking some yoga classes and some people who were Sikhs, and it was the Kundalini yoga, and it blew my mind. It was kind of really neat stuff.
Wow.
So I did that for a while, dropped it. I still have a little bit of a meditation practice here and there.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I grew up doing yoga as well. That's awesome.
All right.
So you how long were you in Silicon Valley then?
Let's see. My first job was at Sun Microsystems back in '88, and I stayed with them till '03, and I worked a couple other companies and moved up to Portland in '07. So yeah, it was 30-something years that I was doing this stuff.
Wow. So why'd you move to Portland?
I moved for love.
Oh.
Yeah, my sweetie didn't like San Francisco, and she had grown up around here. So we moved up. We got a house. We got a dog, and then that didn't end up working out, and I ended up buying the house from her and deciding to stay. It was kind of like, okay, I moved up here for love. It stopped. Do I stay? Do I go? And I decided I liked Portland and decided to stay.
So I've been to Portland once. When I went to Portland, it was actually I've been a few times, but I feel like when you're able to go on your own, I feel like that's really going, in my opinion. I've gone places with family before, but then going on your own road trips and actually exploring places you want to go on your own, it's a whole different experience, right? So I went to Portland. I drove to LA last May, and on my way, I drove through Portland, and it was a complete ghost town. Has that changed much since last May, or is it still
last May? Well, it was a ghost town because we're pretty much all it's been the sequestering, and so people haven't been out much. It's kind of opening back up again. Stuff is happening. Shows are happening again. I've only just this month been comfortable enough to go and paparazzi some shows again.
Yeah.
It's been I have done very little since last year. Basically since the Omicron stuff came in.
Mm-hmm. So how has COVID affected you? Has it affected your artwork at all or anything?
Quite a bit, actually. I did when it first started. I started doing a series I called Quarantine Doodles, and I would just I would put a thing on the easel and just start painting until it began to look like something. I just sort of scribble stuff around. When it started to look like things like figures or something, then I'd follow that. And I would kind of make that happen and push that. And I did that every day for like 160, 180 days.
Wow.
And so I had about a half year's worth of that. And it was a really kind of a neat thing. It kind of felt like almost like I was channeling stuff, like, the stuff was coming through like it was an oracle. They were all kind of surrealist stuff. Let's see, here's some examples of stuff I've done recently. Since now I'll do it occasionally. Here's a piece where there's this is kind of done in the reverse thing, where I put stuff down and then get the whites by pulling the paint off. And then you get these little figures there and kind of birdie-like things and interesting kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Here's a bigger one on a piece of scrapped plywood.
Oh, wow.
So you kind of get these figures in, and it's like seeing what's going on and seeing what images come up. When I put all of these up in a show a year ago in October, it was kind of neat to see the progression, because it was all lined up, and some of them were this big, some of them were just teeny little pieces. Do I have anything in the small size of that?
Dang.
I don't, but here's another one. Here's the thing. This great big bird came out.
Yeah. Dang.
And it's kind of really, really neat to see what comes out in these things.
That's so cool.
And it feels like, a message from something.
I'm just
my
in
subconscious,
awe.
somebody else's is, maybe am I tracking the zeitgeist?
Yeah.
One of the things also that I did during the pandemic was there's a lot of protests in Portland.
Yeah.
It was kind of the center of a lot of that kind of activity, and we have statistically one of the highest incidences of police brutality in the nation. And all of the protests for that, and the police and police union response to us asking them to stop police brutality is to beat us up more. So I did a lot of paintings of that. Only a few on site. I was only at the protest a little bit, but most of them from reacting to things I saw on there.
Right.
Let me see if I can pull some of those up.
Because I saw you did like an interview piece and I saw like there was a whole like website that was like breaking down each piece, right?
Yeah, I did. There was a little the Nailed magazine did two articles on these.
That was super cool.
Let me bring some of these up. All right, this one, which I called Systemic Response.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine who was actually a journalist, was putting his kids to bed and heard all this ruckus around and went out and saw this.
Dang.
Took some pictures of it. I sent him a message, can I use that? And then I did that painting. This was 1 by 2 feet. Some of the early ones, the first one I did was a response to the precinct 3 burning.
Wasn't there a lot of correlation between what was happening in like Chaz and Chop in Seattle and the things that were happening in Portland?
There was, and I did a painting of the martial law band playing there. I had painted them when they came to Portland earlier.
Oh wow!
Here's this big one of the precinct 3 on fire. And there was a really interesting, so there's all the words on it. Basically says disproportionate response, which is there. Because it was responding to a right-wing talking point. Oh, burning a building, that's a disproportionate response to a little bit of police brutality. And then it says, one unarmed man, one building. It's like, oh, is that, there's real anger and real problems going on here.
Yeah.
And it was a big decision of, do I put the words on the painting or not? Because they become part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just do the image, could this image be repurposed to fit right-wing talking points? Like the one painting I did of, let's see if I've got it here. There we go. Defending a murderer's house while the city burns.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when the cops all went to go protect Chauvin's house.
Yeah.
Like if I just had that, it's kind of, without the words, it almost reads as a paean to the bravery of the men in blue who protected the blue line and kept their colleague from getting mobbed.
Yeah.
But like, no, I don't want it to be used that way. So I decided I would put those on there.
Would you say that every piece has a meaning behind it, whether there's actually words on it or not?
Well, for this series, they almost all had the words on it. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up, a few of the pieces sold, and I used the proceeds from that to make stickers and posters.
Nice.
And gave them out to the activist community to post all over things. So they went up, and there was a whole bunch of them. And I had a friend who put up a whole bunch on the street where the police union was, and went back the next day, and they were all peeled off. Like, ooh, that's interesting. Someone really reacted to it.
Yeah.
Which meant it did its job.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
It's like that's high quality engagement to get pissed off enough at stickers to pull them off.
Yes. Dang. So is most of your connections and is it usually like word of mouth, or how do people usually connect with you to either collecting with the activists or working with other artists?
A lot of it is word of mouth. For the sticker stuff, I contacted Don't Shoot Portland, which is a group that has been pointing out police brutality for years, and were strong organizers during the rally and during the protests. So I actually work with them, and we put their logos on some of the posters and stickers. But mostly it's kind of word of mouth things with the paparazzi work. I find events I want to go to, and I just show up. For larger, for locals, that's easy to do.
Yeah.
Just show up, and I talk my way into the venue. I usually pay the cover price, unless it's someone that already knows me and has put me on the list.
Yeah.
But for larger bands, can't always do that.
Yeah.
There's been times when there's been backpack rules. When Pussy Riot came to Portland, there were like no backpacks in there. Things were kind of controversial. I actually even knew one of the security guards there, so we asked the manager of security, who asked someone, and the answer was no. So I didn't.
Right.
And that happened with Too Many Zoos when they came to Portland. But for other bands, I've had some contact. So Heilung is one of my favorite bands. They do kind of Iron Age shamanic folk with all this ritual work in it. And
I like these genres. These are really funny genres.
They're worth looking up. They are fabulous. Let me see if I can. I'll see if I can pull up that thing while I'm talking. Pull up a picture I did of them.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. That's cool. You brought up Martial Law Band. Also, I had him on 3 times. The podcast.
You brought up whom?
Martial Law Band. I've had him on 3 times. Wow, that's really
all right.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So this is Maria Franz from Heilung, and this is a drip painting done from a photo.
Wow.
But I got to paint them live a few times, and it was the connection I got to them was really interesting. So there's one time in Reykjavik. I was visiting there and I was painting little scenes of the city, and there was a printing press in an alley. I go up and I'm painting it. There's a guy up on a ladder scraping a window next to me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Is this yours?" He's like, "It belongs to my tenant." And we got to talking, and I'm doing the painting of this red press out there. And he's like, "Oh, Portland. I've been to Portland." And I was thinking, seeing his tattoos and what he looked like. It's like, "Oh, you're about to say your band played there." My band played there. We're on Alberta Street. That was Adi from Solstafir. So we exchanged stuff, information. And when Solstafir played the next year at KEXP for Reykjavik Calling, mm-hmm. I came up to Seattle and painted them.
Wow.
And standing next to me while I was painting was this gorgeous woman in skin-tight leathers, dressed to the 9.5. And it turns out to be their publicist. Mm. Their PR rep for the label Seasons of Mist, the metal label. Mm-hmm. And they're also the label for Heilung. So that was Katie Irizarry, and she got me backstage passes there. And then just this October, when they came to play Red Rocks, I got to go and get backstage passes to paint them there and give them the paintings afterwards, which was really fun.
Hell yeah. So wait, so how did you actually get involved with the music scene? You said Dijon was your first cover art, correct?
Yeah. So the reason that they called me, it was Jack Karaszewski, the art director, just sent me an Instagram saying, "I love your work. I want to do an album cover." And I looked at his page and I'm like, "You don't look like much of a musician. What?" And then I go back and I reread it and it's like, "Oh, you're the art director for this guy, Dijon." It was on a very different level. Hmm. So he had found another of my slow camera paparazzi projects. One of the things I do is I'll go to Comic-Cons.
Nice.
And I'm cosplaying Bob Ross.
I love it.
And I have my easel there, and I paint the other cosplayers on CD cases. And this time I paint them on the inside so they can close them and protect their costumes, which are just incredible. The things these people do are amazing.
Yeah.
So I painted, there was a Scooby-Doo costume. It was kind of a professionally done thing. It was like this was at the professional cosplayers booth. Mm-hmm. So I almost didn't do it because I like to do the amateurs and the kids and that. But I painted this Scooby-Doo because it was such a cool thing.
Yes.
And I posted that on my Facebook, my Instagram, and some of these posts went around the world and were shared like 5,000 times.
That's
it was
so
really
crazy.
Neat. They just went around the world in a wave because people got into this Bob Ross doing paintings of the kids doing cosplay. And so Jack had seen that, and I was like, I got to use him for something. And it was, about a year later when he finally had a project that worked for it and called me up. And that's how it started.
Wow. So you had no inspiration at first to want to do art covers? It just kind of just happened?
It just happened. It
Wow.
was like I had no, I thought this would be a cool thing because I was doing a lot of music stuff,
Yeah.
and when I do paparazzi work, people are like, "Oh, can we use this for an album cover?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, go for it." And so there's been a few times when the paintings I've done of bands have um, gotten to be album covers. Um, uh, like the Steel City Jug Slammers was the first one.
Nice.
They're from Birmingham, um, and they were great. They played up at the White Eagle.
Wow.
So, and while we're here, here's the picture I did of Solstifier at KEXP.
That's awesome.
You know, when I went to Iceland, Icelandic metal was on my bucket list. So I got to paint a bunch of Icelandic metal bands, which was really fun.
You sound like
there's like huge hair flying all over the place. It's great.
You sound like a very well-traveled man.
It's been kind of fun. That was actually a family trip to Iceland. My parents got all of us to go on a Disney trip. Ooh. It was like a clan of 14, and with siblings and nieces and nephews and all of that. And so I spent a week in Reykjavik afterwards, just going around painting.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So, I was wondering. So, do artists? I guess it depends on the artist. So, for you specifically, is there like a certain design that you are like known for drawing specifically? Is it the bands thing, or is it like I saw those two other covers you showed me? They had like they had birds. Like, are you really into drawing birds, or is there anything that you gain the most inspiration from?
So yeah, there's the band stuff. That's probably what I'm known most for locally. Farther away, for a couple of album covers here and there, that's gotten me a lot of, having done Dijon's cover, then I got a number of people asking me to do stuff. The birds are fun because they are, I actually have done a lot of bird work. One of the chants that Highland does is kind of a bird magic thing. And in fact, there's one of them right here. So this is actually another thing that came from COVID, because COVID and Corvid are so close that COVID and Corvid become synonyms in my personal mythology, which is kind of pun-based. And, this is the kind of thing that artists have personal mythologies, and you develop it, and it gets into the stories and the work.
Yeah.
And the COVID Corvid thing. And so I did a couple of paintings and one mural called 19 Corvids. There were 19 crows and jays and rooks and ravens on them. And then I did some projects where, since COVID really became a mirror for our society.
Yeah.
It's like, this happened, we can see what we're like.
Yeah.
Or to put it in the colloquial, we can see how fucked up of a society we've built. We can really see where our values are when we call people essential workers, but don't give them any personal protection and don't give them actually any extra money and make them work longer hours. We can see that our values are in lip service and not actually taking care of people.
Right.
And, the biggest thing I took away from all the protests in Portland was how many mutual aid organizations arose. Barbecuing for people, helping out homeless people, getting people food, getting people clothing in the winter, and cooling shelters in the summer. And it's just the mutual aid is like there's an underground of let's take care of each other kind of feeling. But the COVID, how society at large and our capital feudalism culture really showed a lot of it. And COVID was a mirror for that. So now in my personal mythology, a corvid is a mirror. So shows up, it mirrors for you. So one of the projects I did was to make a bunch. I made 19 small corvid paintings, and I placed them around the Justice Center as kind of a psychic mirror for this is where the protests were happening. I ringed the place over a couple block radius with pictures of birds, and I just hung them up on things as kind of a mirror. And so this is little things like this. This is a partly done blue jay. These ones are the 5 element birds. Here's the air. Here's water. There's a hooded crow on the Arctic. There's the earth, which is a little playful raven. Here's fire. And then the space one isn't done. So
you are so talented. What the heck? That is so cool. That is awesome.
So birds have been a whole lot of fun. I've really had a lovely time doing that. I don't really consider myself as specializing in any particular kind of imagery.
Right. So this might seem like a silly question, but so once you paint, how do you turn that into a cover art? Do you just take a picture of it, or how does that even become a digital form?
So I have a professional scanner I go to who's a professional printer. He used to work as a technician in the mom and pop print shop over on Barber Avenue. And they retired and sold him their machines, their big digital printing machines. And he runs it out of his basement in a neighborhood in Portland. So he has this huge thing that has like polarized lights coming at 45 degrees and this huge camera, and we'll do a 4x5 foot painting of a perfect reproduction scan of it. So I have that, for professional stuff. I bring it to him. It costs $50 to get a scan made of a painting, and it's perfect. Wow. And he does the work to get it into the right color gamut and all the things needed for Spotify or whatever it is, or for printing if they're going to do a print cover. For people on lower budgets, I take a picture myself with my camera. I just recently got myself a polarized light and a polarized filter so I can get some of the glare out. And I'll do that as part of the cost, but it's not as high quality as bringing it to the professionals.
Right. Dang. So now that we're in the digital space, let's talk about your NFTs. That's really cool that you started to go into that realm.
Yeah, I got into the NFT thing when the hype was like last March, and started doing stuff. I started thinking, how can I get a physical painting into that? So I made some videos of it. I had already been thinking for some of my larger work, like this one up here, or this one here. I don't know if you can see it coming in. It's on a string, so I can just pull it down.
Yeah.
There's like these larger scenes where I kind of want to do a little fly-through video of them.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Spend some time with that. So I started kind of small. I just did some skull paintings and used this autograph stuff to make them sort of move and drip and do things like that, which was really kind of fun. And tried to make them into NFTs and also have them as, like you can buy the NFT and you can also get the physical painting with it. And it was kind of fun to explore. And then I ended up getting crickets and not really having much about that. Well, a friend bought one of them, and I kind of lost a little bit of interest. But I decided that I would have them out there, because what I noticed was that the people who are actually getting successful at NFTs are the people that were already known.
Yes.
It's like, okay, if I have some NFTs that have been there for years, and then when I suddenly get known, as like if I do another high profile album cover and I get known about them, people are like, oh, I can go get these things. But they wouldn't work as a way to promote my work on the way. I have to.
Yeah, that's what I learned too. Like my friends who are doing stuff in like crypto, that are like actually making things versus buying things, they're like they might not be celebrities, but their marketing budgets alone for NFT stuff is massive. So
Yeah.
it's just like, so anytime anyone talks to me about like NFTs or crypto stuff, I'm like, you need money to make money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much. And I'm kind of like, okay, I'm not so much that I just want to make a whole bunch of money on this.
Right.
I kind of, I would love to have a little bit of fame, because that lets you do bigger work and more high profile work. Like, I don't know, you might have seen the pictures of the lights on the Bay Bridge. They have this interesting little cascading patterns of LED lights. And there's a guy, Villanueva, who's doing that. He started as a Burning Man light artist, but he got enough fame that he was asked to do the Bay Bridge in San Francisco. I was like, yeah, I want to be able to have that kind of, be able to do that. I want to be the guy that a band calls up and says, come and paint us while we're playing.
Yeah.
It's not so much making a whole bunch of the NFTs that motivates me. It's being able to do the fun, high profile stuff.
Yes.
But I realized the thing about NFTs that kind of explains it for me. Do you remember the banana taped to the wall?
Yeah.
All right. And the guy that bought the banana taped to the wall for $250,000. So he gets a piece of art that's not going to last. And then the photographer goes and eats the banana. And that's part of the art. So what did the guy who bought the banana really buy?
An experience, I guess.
he bought bragging rights. He bought the ability to say, I'm the guy who bought the banana. All right. So the experience, sure, but anyone who was there with him had that experience of watching in horror as the photographer ate the banana. True. You didn't have to buy that. But to be able to say, I am the guy who bought the banana. I bought a nothing that I can say something about. And that's what NFTs are. You bought the right to say that you have bought the right to say that you have. And it's in our meme-driven world right now, that's actually a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a hyper object in itself. It is a reified concept. So it's not a complete nothing, but it's not a physical thing, and it's a concept that we don't know much about yet. Originally, I thought of it in terms of provenance, and in the blue chip art world, provenance is everything. If you've got a suspected Renoir, you have to trace where it came from through gallery records and kind of like not very reliable historian kind of records and receipts and things. And some of them are very well documented and some of them are not very well documented. And in the art world, that's known as provenance. I was thinking maybe NFTs give the little artist the ability to have rock solid on the blockchain provenance.
Yeah.
It didn't turn out to work that way.
Oh.
People took it in the get rich quick, make a big money thing. And the little artist didn't really get any. You can't just have stuff out there and get your provenance and do stuff. It didn't turn out that way, that even though it had a potential to do it, and it might still.
Right.
I don't know. I haven't really tracked it very much since last year.
No, honestly, that kind of makes sense. Like I can't even, I wouldn't at this point recommend, like some of my friends are like, I want to make my best album ever and then make it an NFT. And I'm like, so you're just, but that might be your best work, but who's going to notice that unless you have the resources to actually promote it? And they're not really caring that you put out that album. What if you gain traction with that album, they're buying it for the bragging rights versus to be like, oh, I have this amazing project that this guy created.
Yeah.
So it's a an interesting thing that some people know a lot about and other people don't, and then there's also like the misinformation about. I don't even know if misinformation is the right word, but like the misconception of what it all is about. That's a better word. So I've heard you a few times mention Burning Man. I'd love to hear your take on Burning Man. How many times have you been? How did you get involved with Burning Man?
Let's see, I went first in 99. 98 was the first year I sent art out there. I made a bunch of didgeridoos out of plastic and painted them up and sent them out with a friend to give out to people. Mm-hmm. And then started going the next year, and I was doing large scale immersive audio art at the time. I was kind of on at the beginning of a 12 to 15 year hiatus from painting, and I sort of went into the music realm. And it came from, I was doing videos of my paintings and sort of morphing them together and putting music that I liked as a soundtrack. It's something that's done all the time now on videos that was kind of unheard of back in 96, 97. Yeah. And I realized I didn't have the copyright. So I was putting like Mari Boina and Sky Cries Mary and stuff like that on some videos. And it was really kind of fun stuff, but there was no way to publish this. People were doing CD-ROMs at the time. The web hadn't hit yet. And especially you couldn't put videos on the web back in the early 90s. And so I decided I'd start sort of making my own music for soundtracks. And I got some loopers and was using kind of forwards and backwards guitars, and I was doing throat singing at the time. And that evolved into improv bands where we would kind of be halfway between musical improv and theater improv. Rehearsals for those were kind of fun. We go to like do theater improv techniques as well as that as well. And I would make instruments that we would play on, like some Blue Man Group tube organs and fun stuff like that. We had a really good beatboxer. Nice. Now goes by Kid Beyond on the team, and a theremin player. That's where my email address from Octlass Theremin came from. It was my first band. I had the band name before I had a theremin player. As soon as I met a theremin player, like, all right, now we're forming the band. I had the name for years. We're doing it.
Wow.
And so we played a lot. We only played Burning Man stuff. It was like we played our first gig out at Burning Man.
Whoa.
In a dust storm while projecting video onto a sheet that was blowing in the wind, and we had 3 people in the audience at 2 a.m. It was excruciating. I was freezing my ass off.
Dang.
I then got to do immersive installations. The first one I did it was the Vault of Heaven year, and I did a star chart thing where in a dome there was some software that would let you put sound anywhere in that dome. Mm. And I was doing acting classes at the time and got some of my friends to record a bunch of star myths. I kind of like took star myths and rewrote them from like the point of view of a bitter skater that had just gotten knocked up by Zeus, and Hera was pissed off at her. And so she was living on the street as a punk, and told the story of the Big Dipper myth from her point of view, because she was thrown up there and turned into a bear in the old Greek mythologies. But I rewrote them, and I had my voice actor friends do them. And you're in this dome, and it's playing soft music, and then it would choose a constellation at random. And with about a page of star map, would tell you exactly where Cassiopeia was right now. And it would play Cassiopeia's story from that point of the sky.
Nice.
And that was really fun.
Yeah.
The next year was my most successful piece. I call it Haunted Garden. And it's a room that listens to you, figures out the notes in your voice, and composes music out of them. And it would play ambient music based on those notes.
Whoa. Wait, how does that even work?
I programmed it in Max MSP.
I keep forgetting your Software developer.
Yeah, this is where my this is after I had gotten laid off from Sun, and I had 2 years where I was just making art,
Wow.
music out of software, and making programs that would compose music. And so it would detect notes, by running a fast Fourier transform, find the peaks, and give you a stream of the MIDI note numbers that would come out. And then I would turn those, I would find the harmonic series for those and play the harmonics of what was playing there. And that ended up becoming really successful. It was out at the trash fence in a dome made out of sailcloth, and there were LED lights. This was back before you could buy them, the commercially color changing ones.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that coded this stuff in assembly himself and was doing these things. So I would change the color of the dome based on the key, the statistical guesses of the musical key of the sounds it was hearing.
Dang. That is so. Is software development still part of your life in some way or another now, or is it all just oil painting and chickens? Or?
I know you can hear them. They're just hanging out. These days, it's kind of mostly the painting stuff. I'm not doing very much software. When I was doing NFTs, when I was doing the videos for them,
Mm-hmm.
I coded up the soundtracks. That THX sound where there's just this noise and it converges to one sound. I had heard a description of how people did that. There was just a bunch of oscillators that would run around randomly and gradually go to a place. So I wrote some software that would let you direct that, and it would let you say, take this number of cycles to randomly converge to a B flat, this one to a G, and then this one, and bam, you've got a G minor chord coming in, and then a dissonant note would come in, and it would diverge and then converge again. And I wrote that in Python, and kind of had these crazy soundtracks that would go with these skulls that were dissolving.
Dang.
And that was a whole lot of fun.
That's awesome.
That was, but yeah, I haven't done much software in the last year or so.
Do you
it's a nice break.
Do you think about where technology is going though? Like we talked about NFTs. Do you ever think about like the metaverse or anything like that?
Not that much. I got to go to some Jaron Lanier lectures back when he was doing the early VR stuff, and it was kind of interesting seeing that and seeing where it's come in the 20 years since then. And I don't think it's anywhere near where it's going to be as compelling as just the shift to the connectivity we got from the web and the internet was. That was huge,
right.
Changing, groundbreaking, and the monetization strategies that they had caused all these bifurcated bubbles. I don't think anything that the metaverse can do is going to come close to that kind of changing. And there's a saying we had in the software industry, and it comes in a lot of things, but it's very much applied to new projects, and that's the second mouse gets the cheese. And Zuckerberg is not the second mouse in this case.
Who's the second mouse? Do you know?
We haven't seen him yet. Someone else. They'll do what they can to kind of make a little something. It'll fail, and someone else will figure out how to make it work.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's in the future.
Yeah. So one of my final questions for you is, this podcast is all about like highlighting artists, inspiring the listeners, whether they are artists themselves or just want to learn more about what it's like to be an artist. And I'm intrigued to hear where your mindset was when you decided to take the switch from being in software to becoming a full-time artist. Was it an easy switch? Was it a thing where being in tech you were able to save up enough of an income that you could switch over easy, or was it like a dramatic switch, or how was that?
It was easy. I had saved up enough. I was just at the point of paying off my house. And I had actually been working for the last 3 years for startups that were doing some really interesting kind of socially responsible things that were interesting projects. But they were kind of on spec and they didn't end up paying much.
Mm.
So I ended up working for 3 years for not that much pay. In fact, for the last couple, I wasn't getting paid anything at all. And so the switch to full-time art was not a financial difference, shall we say.
Wow.
I went from making no money at software to making no money at art. It was easy. and then I started making money at art. It was kind of neat.
That's awesome.
When I had the show in October, a year and a quarter ago, year and a half, long time. I ended up kind of making a deal with the Muse and ended up selling a painting every day, or averaging a painting a day.
Really?
Which was really fun. And it was kind of like there was some hustle there, and I had to do some things where I painted a bunch of little spooky Halloween skulls and said, all right, just pay what you want, because I was more concerned about being able to say I sold a painting every day in October than I was about how much I was making on them.
Mm-hmm. And when did the chickens come into play?
Let's see. One of my housemates got chickens last year.
Nice.
2 years ago. They're a year or two old now. I lose track of time. He just started a second batch. He's got teen little chicks this big in the brooder right now, and he's picking up more today. So it's he's got a little coop out there, but we let the chickens out every day and they run around the yard. It's kind of fun. I've got a half-acre lot, and we do a bunch of community stuff here, which is really, really fun. One of my friend groups built 12-foot high letters spelling out BLM, which we brought to a rally on flatbed truck. And we got some of the local graffiti artists to do murals on them.
Wow.
Those are still there. And there's local regional versions of the Burning Man thing. This is like the small weekend long thing. And we have a temple that we burn, and that gets built in my yard.
Wow.
So I get a lot of use out of having space here and having people come and do really fun, interesting projects.
That's awesome. It seems like you're very community oriented, and that's really cool to see.
That's the only way we're going to survive the apocalypse.
Yes.
By getting together and supporting each other and building the community support networks is really the only thing that's going to let us survive if things get bad.
Yeah. Do you know when the underwater volcano erupted?
Yeah. Or in Tonga or something like that?
Yeah. I got the notification that there was a volcanic eruption, and I was like, holy shit, it's about to be the apocalypse. And it was I'll never forget that. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like talking to my friend. I was like, what are we going to do? Are we going to survive the apocalypse? A volcano just erupted? Because it was literally saying that there's going to be like chances of tsunamis hitting Washington. And I was like, what the heck is going on?
Oh yeah, and they did hit Washington, but they were a foot high by the time they hit.
Yeah, so I think people think the most of COVID and stuff is over, but what if that wasn't even the apocalypse? We still have to prepare for the actual apocalypse.
It could be, it could be the breeding ground for something that's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I mean, if that was a practice run, we
failed.
We need to go back on the bench.
If COVID was a practice run, we failed.
Coach is not going to put us in for the next game.
Oh my goodness. Well, what's anything upcoming for you that you would like to promote?
Let's see. What have I've been in a really interesting lull for a while, so I kind of haven't got stuck on a couple commissions. I haven't really painted very much at all this year, just a little bit of paparazzi work. So I'm only just starting to get going again. I don't really have anything coming up yet. There's the next. I'm working on the next single for the unnamed band that you'll talk about in another podcast. That'll come out soon. But other than that, I don't really have that much to have people tune into that's coming up.
Well, I appreciate you coming on this podcast, and I'm a fan. You got a fan here. So
all right, I'm having a whole lot of fun.
Hell yeah! So what is some final advice that you would have for any up and coming artists, creators, influencers?
Art is going to be really important coming up, and connecting with people and community building is kind of this ground up, from the ground up kind of stuff. An image I like, which is kind of going into my personal mythology, is Taproots versus Mycelium. Where our world is built on people with a lot of power who use their big taproots to pull a whole bunch of stuff into themselves and make themselves the biggest tree they can. But that's not really how it works in forests, because there's these huge underground networks of mycelium that kind of distribute resources among things. It's like they will take the nutrients from the big trees and send them to the parts that don't get as much sun or something, and it kind of equalizes everything. And I think we kind of need this community building, mutual aid kind of thing to take. We've got huge concentrations of wealth and power, and we kind of need that underground distribution mechanism.
Yeah.
To get it so that we're not such a top heavy society, because that is not it's not going to last, and it can't. It makes life much worse for everybody. So I've been doing kind of visualizations in how can we think in terms of these mycelial networks that pull the nutrients out from the taproots and distribute them to the people that don't generate as much.
Yeah.
That's where I'm thinking these days.
That's a great thought process. Yeah. That's very important. Community is very important in helping people, especially during these times. Especially if this is the beginning, Oh man, if COVID.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see it in the next couple of weeks when the gas prices go up and make everything else go up.
Oh yeah.
And how can we? This is a time when even if you can afford to fill up your whole tank of gas, try not to drive as much will keep the demand down, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's something we can do for everybody else.
Yeah. I always know it's bad when so my house is in the woods and there's a gas station in the woods, and then there's neighboring gas stations in the neighboring cities, but like the gas station in the woods usually is relatively low compared to like if I drive into the city. And I got gas today in the woods, and it was $5, and I was like, "What the hell? This is the last place that the gas is supposed to increase." It was $5 in the middle of the woods for gas.
Yep. The prices go up on speculation, and then they don't go back down.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah. Until it was kind of interesting when people stopped driving during COVID. They had to go down.
Yeah.
But it went down slowly. They go up fast and they come back down slowly.
Yeah. I remember when I was in LA, I was like, at least Washington's never going to reach $5 a gallon. So now that Washington's $5 a gallon, I can only imagine what LA is now.
Yeah. And still, we're still even at $8 a gallon, we're way below what they pay in Europe, even when things were good.
Dang. Well, I feel like everything's so far away here, though. Like I can't walk anywhere. It's 15 minutes, a 15-minute drive to the closest city to me. So that's at least that's like an hour or so for a walk.
Yeah.
So I can't.
And hard to bike.
Yeah. Back roads are hard to bike for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, man. I really appreciate you coming on this podcast. Like I said, I'm a fan of your work, and I love to have you back on.
Drop by if you're in Portland. Drop me a line and come visit my studio. It'd be great to see you.
Hell yeah. So what is the easiest way for people to reach you?
Let's see. On Instagram, I'm Copper Pipes. On Facebook, you can look up Slow Camera Paparazzi.
There we go. This has been the NAST podcast with
Simran Gleason.
And we did it.